never planned to talk about this, but here we go. On the morning of the 28th of October 2023, I was hungover and I was woken up by a loud bang followed by strange grunting noises. At first, I ignored it, but eventually got up to check. That's when I found my younger brother lying on the bathroom floor, his head surrounded by blood. I ran to his side and called out his name. No response. I was in a state of panic and didn't know what else to do except call 000. While on the phone with the operator, I did my best to keep him conscious and breathing. He was dazed from the fall. The impact had knocked out one tooth clean and chipped a few others. He luckily hadn't hit his head as a first thought. He couldn't speak, so we communicated by squeezing my hand. The ambulance arrived and did their checks, picking up the tooth that had fallen out, and then he was taken to the hospital. I stayed behind to pack a hospital bag and clean up the blood. At the hospital, he was back to normal and could talk. The nurse tried to reinsert the tooth with some success. Then came the hardest part, calling Mum. It went as you would expect. She left work immediately and came straight to the hospital. The doctors explained it could have been a seizure or fainting episode. They gave us a safety plan and referred us to the dental hospital. We went there the same day to get a dental split made and for further exams. From that day on, our focus was his health. We made sure he ate and slept well. We were hopeful it was a one-off and life returned to normal. But that didn't last long. On the morning of New Year's Eve 2023, I had just woken up and was in the bathroom getting ready when I heard the same grunting noises. It's kind of hard to describe. It's a sound a human would make, but not voluntarily, so it's very distinct. I went over to question him about the noise, and that's when I saw him having a seizure. His body convulsing against his chair, his eyes blinking and going everywhere, and foam and blood running down his mouth. I didn't know what to do, so I called out for my partner, who's a trained nurse, and she came in, saw what was happening, and I remember just yelling at her just to tell me what to do to make it stop. And she told me I couldn't do anything, that we just had to wait for it to be over. That feeling of helplessness, I still remember it to this day. The seizure lasted for 2 to 3 minutes, and then after it was over, his whole body went limp. We placed him onto the floor and then put him into the recovery position. My partner called 000, and then the ambulance came shortly after. At the hospital, I described what I saw. They said it was likely a tonic-clonic seizure. I honestly don't remember much of the phone call to Mum. I just told her to come. When she arrived, I explained everything. The doctor said he needed an MRI and an EEG done to examine his brain, and they also updated our safety plan. No being home alone, no bike riding, no swimming, no locked doors, and no showering alone. We still celebrated New Year's Eve that night, but I couldn't shake the sense of dread. I knew it wouldn't be the last time. After that, any loud noise had me yelling, "Are you okay?" And if he didn't respond, I'd rush to the front of his room door and wait until I heard a noise like a keyboard typing before I went back to my room. Then, on the 5th of January 2024, I was working at my desk and heard this repeated knocking noise. Normally, I don't react to loud bangs, like someone dropping their phone, but this noise was so persistent. I went over to check and he was having a seizure. The knocking noise was him hitting the wall. I held him to his chair until it ended and then moved him to a larger area of the room and placed him in the recovery position. I called 000 and we went back to the hospital. This time, he was prescribed Keppra, an anti-seizure medication, and sent home. The first few times seeing a seizure were honestly terrifying. The way the body jerks, the way the eyes just blink and just shoot up, the noise. It's hard to watch. It's really, really hard to watch. Having to hold him to the chair and watch him have that seizure every time was scary. After this day, we took action. We bought him a new chair with a headrest, added foam mats to his desk and wall to prevent injury during seizures. The next one happened on January 10th, 2024 at 8:30 p.m. Mum, my partner and I were all home when we heard a loud thud from the toilet. We all rushed over and tried to open the door, but he had locked it. Using the butter knife trick, we were able to unlock it. but then his limp body was blocking the door. We pushed as much as we could until Mum squeezed through. My partner called 000 whilst I instructed my mum on what to do. The phone call with the operator was not very productive. The operator kept telling us to put the phone where my mum was, who didn't speak English. And then they would instruct my mum on what to do whilst we had to translate past the door. Our main worry was that his mouth was bleeding again from the fall. The ambulance arrived fast and they had to wheel him to the ambulance as he was still in his post-ictal phase and was dazed. The post-ictal phase is after a seizure has finished and the person is still confused, unconscious or dazed. This was my mum's first time seeing a seizure, so she was in shock. At the hospital, they increased his dosage of Keppra and discharged us. The day after, I bought more foam mats and called my friends over to help me change the ways the doors open, so we couldn't be blocked if he had a seizure in front of the door again. Special thanks to George and Long for changing the doors for me. We'll always be grateful for that. A few days after, we got the MRI done, which showed no brain abnormalities. On the morning of the 15th of February 2024, my brother had his root canal treatment completed on the tooth that had fallen out. We decided to eat pho afterwards, something soft to eat. Whilst talking and eating, he stopped replying and his face went blank. This was the first time seeing him have a seizure right in front of me, and I was surprised at how fast it happened. He started to convulse, eyes shooting up and hitting the table. I rushed over, clearing chairs and tables out the way, making sure he didn't choke. Once the seizure ended and he went limp, I lowered him to the floor. This one was tough, being in a public space. Everyone stared, but two kind men came over, said they knew someone with epilepsy, and stayed by my side while I got my bearings. I didn't call the ambulance right away, since the last hospital visit suggested we could increase his meds if needed. So we went home to let him rest. But at 3:30 PM, he had another seizure. I heard the now familiar grunting and felt him convulsing at his desk. This time, I called the ambulance. He'd never had 2 seizures in one day before. At the hospital, they maxed out his Keppra dosage. I think this is when things were taking a mental toll on me. I'd seen every seizure up until this point, not knowing when I could relax, and now knowing that he could possibly have more than 1 seizure in one day. Later that night, we went to our eldest sister's house for dinner. During the meal, he had his 3rd seizure. I held him steady while my mum got pillows and blankets. My sister moved the kids away so they wouldn't see. We debated whether to go back to the hospital, but decided it was for the best. They administered more medication and kept him overnight. Mum stayed, I went home, knowing he was safe. From then on, things became difficult for everyone in the family. Mum struggled to work, constantly worrying about my brother. My brother, only 14, lost all privacy. He couldn't shut his door, couldn't shower alone. I started to have nightmares, waking up with my heart pounding and body sweating. This would happen multiple times a week, so I'd become very restless. Some mornings, I'd even run out of my room half awake after any loud noise, assuming a seizure might have happened. The next seizure was on the morning of the 15th of March 2024. Mum screamed my name from the bathroom. She'd heard a loud bang, and so did I. I woke up and ran to find my brother by the door, having fallen during a seizure. If we hadn't changed the doors, we would have been stuck again. Once again, there were no real triggers. He'd felt fine before this. We called the hospital and they told us that if he had another one in the same day, we could bring him to the hospital. So this time we just let him rest at home. We could only wait for the EEG, which is coming up at the end of March. On the morning of the 21st of March 2024, I got a call from his school. He'd had a seizure in class. I knew today was going to be a tough day for him. Knowing that your classmates saw you in that state wouldn't have been easy. When I got there, he was in a wheelchair, emotional but past the post-ictal state. We talked whilst waiting for the ambulance. It was hard to see him so upset at something he couldn't control. The paramedics arrived, and just as he was being transported to the ambulance in a wheelchair, research started. And if it couldn't get any worse, he had another seizure. I didn't do much except keep him to the chair whilst the paramedics did everything else. When the seizure finished, they loaded him into the ambulance and took him to the hospital. I went home to get him a hospital bag and later met them up there. At the hospital, he fell asleep. When he woke up at around 1 PM, the nurses checked on him. We were mid-conversation at 2:13 PM when he suddenly stopped speaking, eyes open but unresponsive. Then came another seizure. 2 doctors rushed over with an oxygen mask as the entire ward observed. This one only lasted 20 to 30 seconds and he quickly recovered. At 2:34 PM, it happened again, another short seizure. A nurse was nearby and immediately called for help. At this point, the doctors decided to move him to the resuscitation room. I believe so he could have better oxygen, but I wasn't sure. I was zoning out at this point, feeling overwhelmed with everything happening so fast. In the resus ward, I watched him closely, hoping he wouldn't have another one. It didn't take long. The next seizure happened at 2:55 PM. The oxygen mask went back on and he began convulsing. 3 to 4 nurses had to hold him down to administer him with medication. I should have been used to it by now, but I wasn't. I was having a hard time keeping myself together, seeing the 5th seizure of the day. I asked the doctor if I could leave to pick up Mum. She'd left work and was waiting for me, and honestly, I just needed the air. We returned with an overnight bag. Mum cried beside him, and I did my best to stay composed. They confirmed he'd be staying overnight. Mum stayed, and I went home. I remember getting Macca's on the way home, and then coming into the house, sitting right here, and I just cried. I think everything, all the built-up stress, always being tired, and just being worried all the time, it just finally got to me. I don't remember how long I cried for, but I remember my Macca's was cold by the end of it. The next day, they had the valparate along with his Keppra and discharged us. That day changed Mum and I. She stopped working to stay home and monitor him full time. I could no longer feel sorry for myself. I had to keep going. I had to keep pushing myself, no matter how long it took. But in hindsight, that probably wasn't the best idea. I just didn't want to burden anyone. It was a lot to ask for help, I guess. So instead, I just tried to learn as much as I could about epilepsy, trying to regain some control to some extent. On March 30th, 2024, my brother finally had his EEG. Our next appointment was with the neurology team at the Royal Children's Hospital on the 12th of April, 2024. He had another seizure on the 8th of April, 2024, but this time, Mum and I were ready. It felt different, more like the ones he had in the hospital. It was short, and he returned to baseline within 2 to 3 minutes. We called the hospital, and they reassured us to wait for the upcoming neurology appointment. On the afternoon of the 12th of April, we went to the Royal Children's Hospital. That's where my brother was diagnosed with generalized epilepsy. His doctors adjusted his medication, slowly weaning him off Keppra and starting him on lamotrigine. The next seizure happened the very next day, but this time, my brother felt it coming. He said his head felt like it was shaking, and he moved himself to the bed just before it hit. It was short. It was back to normal within 2 minutes. For the first time, we felt hopeful. Maybe this new medication will work. And then, it stopped. He's been seizure-free since. There's still some trauma that lingers for me and Mum. We're still both hyper aware of any noises in the house, and she still struggles to leave him home by himself unless I'm home with him. And for me, I can't look at blood the same way. After seeing his head in a pool of blood, it's made it difficult. There's also some guilt there as well. If I wasn't hungover that day, maybe I could have gotten to him faster. I also can't watch him eat anymore. The amount of times he's had a seizure right in front of me whilst he was eating. Sometimes when I look at him, it just brings me back. And my brother, he's pushing forward like nothing ever happened. He's got a job now, doing well in school. It's good. I'm proud of him, proud of how far he's come. I admire his strength, and maybe one day, Mum and I will get there too. Now, while our story has a good ending, many people affected by epilepsy haven't had theirs yet. And that's why I'll be participating in the Run Melbourne 2025 doing the half marathon, raising funds for the Epilepsy Foundation. If you'd like to support me and the cause, I have donation links down below. And if you can't donate, that's okay. Please take a moment to educate yourself on epilepsy and seizure first aid. If you ever see someone having a seizure, don't hesitate to help. And if they have a caretaker with them, even a small gesture like checking in, offering help, or just being there can mean the world. Thank you for watching my video until the very end. I hope together we can make a difference. Before I end the video, I just want to share a quick personal note. I actually had to reshoot this twice. I'm not the best at public speaking, but this story means a lot to me and I wanted to do it right. My brother also gave me full permission to talk about his journey. Right now, my running record is 3 kilometers, and with a half marathon being 21 kilometers and only 85 days away, I've got a lot of work to do. And also, special thanks to my lovely partner for helping me record this video. Bye!